Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy. I hope you're doing really well wherever or whenever in the world that you are. Today we're going to be doing a classic unhaul. It is January. It's the beginning of the year. It's a fresh start. And so one of the things I wanted to do before January slipped away was go through the books that I physically own on my shelf, just to double check which ones are still really meaningful to me, which ones do I want to reread or lend out to friends and family, and which ones could find a new home. Some of these books are books that I love, and for reasons I'm gonna unhaul. Some of them are books that I haven't read and I just don't foresee myself reading them for whatever reason. And the other books are either books that I liked but don't see myself rereading or lending out, or they weren't quite my favorites. This certainly isn't the most massive unhaul you'll ever see. I actually only have 6 books here, but my physical book collection is on the more modest side. So for me, this is a pretty substantial unhaul, but I think for the internet as a whole, it's more of a mini one, a mini unhaul. I should have said this at the very beginning, but I'm not gonna go I'm not gonna go into the synopses for these books at all. If you're curious, Google it, look on Goodreads. That's where you can get all the information that you need about what these stories are. I'm just gonna share with you the why behind the unhaul, not so much what the book itself is about. All right, so let's get into it. The first book, like I said, might shock some people, but the first book I'm gonna unhaul is this particular copy of How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. Now, the only reason I'm giving this copy up is because I recently obtained a signed copy of this book. So I don't really need 2 of the same books. So this paperback will just go find a new home. This, yes, okay. Just let me know you're here, okay. Anyways, what was I saying? This was one of my favorite books that I read in 2021. I've read it physically. I've listened to the audiobook. It is so excellent. Just, if you haven't read it, I highly, highly recommend. I actually really loved the audiobook because Clint Smith narrates it, and he has a background in spoken word, and just the cadence and rhythm of how he narrates really sucked me in. I loved it so much. So anyways, I love this book. I have another copy up there that is signed. That's why I'm getting rid of my unsigned copy. So this is the first one that will hopefully find a new and loving home. The next book is also one of my favorite books. This is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Now, this was my favorite book from last year. So you might be wondering, Andy, why would you get rid of the physical copy? And just like with How the Word is Passed, I also recently obtained a signed copy of this book. So again, this is not a signed version, and I don't need 2. But if you don't know, this is a wonderful book about 2 seemingly unrelatable people, big city gal, small town guy, just, it's a delight. My favorite of last year, and I do love this book. I almost wanted to keep both copies, but I don't have a lot of shelf space. It is precious real estate, so I have to be mindful, and I don't need 2 copies of the same book, even though I love it. So this unsigned copy is also gonna find a new home. This next book is a nonfiction novel. It is Surviving on Hope by Tom Newman. This is a Holocaust survivor's story, and I purchased this book because an acquaintance of mine back in college is related to this gentleman, and I was excited and I wanted to support their family. I don't feel like I'm gonna want to pick this up ever. I don't love reading about the Holocaust. I'm Jewish, so I feel like I've heard, seen it all. And so I just don't know that this is something that I'm gonna pick up. Yeah, I haven't read it. I don't know of anybody who has read it. I do think it's maybe an indie published memoir, but I can't see myself reaching for this when in the best of circumstances, on the best of days, I don't find myself wanting to read books, fiction or nonfiction from this time period. So I think I'm gonna unhaul this one. But again, I haven't read it, so I don't know much about this person's story. If you want it or if you're curious, check out your local bookstore. That's Surviving on Hope. Sadly, I just don't think I'm gonna pick it up. So therefore, it shall be unhauled. The next book that I am unhauling is Verity by Colleen Hoover. Now, I bought the physical copy of this back in the day when we were reading this for one of the book clubs that I'm in, and I was in a phase where I wanted to buy all the physical copies of those books because one, I didn't really know how long the book club was gonna last. We started it during the pandemic, so I kind of wanted the physical book to have as more of a keepsake almost than anything. But because our book club is still going and I don't feel the need to buy as many physical books, this one has kind of lost some of its sentimental value. So that's part of why I no longer feel like I want to hold on to this book. But also, I don't love Colleen Hoover. This book was certainly captivating and a page turner, but I just didn't like the overall message that kind of comes from this story. I didn't like some of the themes or some of the feelings that came up for me while reading this. I don't know that I'll ever read it again. I don't know that I would necessarily lend it out. I can't think of anyone in my family or friend group who hasn't already read this or would like this. So yeah, I mean, I know that this is a beloved author, a super hype book, but for me, I don't want this taking up any precious space on my bookshelf. So Verity, goodbye. The next book that I'm gonna unhaul is Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I also read this for a book club, the same book club actually that I read Verity in, and I liked this book when I read it. It hasn't stuck with me as much as I think I had when I first finished reading it. It's not something I could see myself ever rereading the physical copy of. I think if I was ever curious or wanted to revisit it, I might just rent it or pick it up from my library, the Libby app. Yeah, this book just didn't quite stick with me as much. So I don't feel the pull or the need to hold on to it. I did enjoy this book. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. It does kind of feel a bit cheesy or a bit on the nose with the words of wisdom throughout. But at the time, again, we read this during the pandemic, and so it hit a little bit different when I read it back then. It's just not one I think I'm gonna come back to. So for that reason, I think I'm gonna unhaul it. And then the last book is also from that book club during the pandemic that we read, and I was buying all the books physically, is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I actually loved this. I definitely lent it out to several of my friends, and I think maybe my sister borrowed it. So this book is a ride. It was so much fun. Oh, I just knocked everything up. This is the first Lucy Foley book that I ever read. I loved it. I thought it was such a twisty, turny journey, and the twist reveal at the end, I didn't see coming. But this was also probably one of the first thrillers that I had ever read kind of as an adult. So I don't know if people who read a lot of thrillers, if this is good. I don't really know. But all that to say is I don't tend to reread thrillers because once you know the twist, I don't feel like it hits the same if you reread it. I'd be curious, let me know, do you reread thrillers? If so, why? Do you get more out of it the second time, or is it just you like that world or those characters? I'd be curious to know, so leave those comments down below. I don't think I'm gonna reread it. I think if I had the inkling or if I wanted to come back to this, again, I would just look for it on my Libby app or from my library or from Hoopla. I'm not pressed about keeping the physical copy. Again, because I only have one bookshelf, it's just, I don't have a lot of room. And so I have to be really strict about which books I keep and which ones I don't hold on to. So The Guest List will find a new home. And that's it. those are the 6 books that I'm gonna unhaul. I haven't decided if I'm just gonna donate them, if I'm gonna try and sell them on Pango Books, or drop them off at a used bookstore, something different, put them in one of the free little libraries I see in people's neighborhoods. So I have to figure out where they're gonna be transported to. But yeah, hopefully all 6 of these books will find new homes. They'll be beloved by whoever picks them up. I really hope. So anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Just a quick and dirty unhaul. You know, we're just doing a quick clean house of the bookshelf as it's still January, still the beginning of the year. That way I still have some room around the shelf to buy books throughout this year. Let me know if you've unhauled any books in your collection recently. If so, how many? Were there any that you really had a hard time letting go of? I'd love to know. So like I said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, go ahead and leave a little trash can emoji, if that's a thing, or trash. I don't know if that's an emoji you can leave, but if it is, or anything resembling trash, or deleting, or getting rid of, that all works. I'm rambling at this point. Anyways, okay, that's all I got. I gotta go. I'll see you guys in the next video soon. Bye.